Two guys walk into a boardroom in Dallas. They're carrying a business plan for a company that ships DVDs in the mail. They offer to sell the whole thing for $50 million. The men across the table start laughing. That company was Netflix. Today, Netflix is worth over $300 billion. The company that laughed? It doesn't exist anymore. This is the story of one decision, and what $1,000 would have done depending on which side of that table you believed. Rewind to 1994. Blockbuster is everywhere. 60 million people rent from them every week. There's a Blockbuster store opening every 17 hours. Friday night means one thing: piling in the car, walking the aisles, and fighting over the last copy of the new release. Blockbuster isn't just a video store. It's a cultural ritual. The blue and yellow sign is as recognizable as McDonald's golden arches. At its peak, there are over 9,000 stores worldwide. It feels unstoppable. But there's a catch to the business. A catch most customers hate. Late fees. Return a movie one day late, and you're paying almost as much as renting it again. In some years, late fees account for nearly a third of Blockbuster's total revenue. Meanwhile, in Santa Cruz, California, a software entrepreneur named Reed Hastings gets hit with a $40 late fee on a rented copy of Apollo 13. He's annoyed. He starts wondering, what if renting movies didn't work like this at all? In 1997, Hastings teams up with Mark Randolph. They notice something new hitting the market: the DVD. Small, light, cheap to mail. They test it by mailing a CD in a plain envelope to see if it survives the post office. It arrives intact. That simple test becomes the foundation of Netflix. No storefronts. No late fees. You get a DVD in the mail, watch it, mail it back, get the next one. It's a completely different relationship with the customer. Here's the moment worth sitting with. If you were in that Dallas boardroom in 2000, knowing only what they knew then, would you have said yes? Most people, honestly, would have said no too. That's what makes this story so useful. It isn't really about Blockbuster being stupid. It's about how hard it is to see disruption coming when you're the one on top. Keep that in mind. We'll come back to it. Through the early 2000s, Netflix keeps grinding. It builds a recommendation engine, software that learns what you like and suggests what to watch next. It's a small feature. It will end up being one of the most important assets Netflix ever builds. Netflix goes public in 2002 at $15 a share. It's a modest, unremarkable IPO. Nobody on Wall Street is calling it the future of entertainment. Most people barely notice. Blockbuster, meanwhile, is still thriving, on paper. Revenue keeps climbing through the early 2000s. Stores keep opening. But underneath the surface, two threats are quietly building: online DVD rental, and a new kind of vending machine. In 2004, a company called Redbox starts installing Red DVD rental kiosks in grocery stores. A rental for $1 a night. No membership. No drive to a store. Just insert a card, grab a movie and go. Blockbuster tries to respond to Netflix directly. In 2004, it launches its own DVD by mail service. It even eventually drops late fees entirely. The very thing that built its revenue for a decade. But that move comes with a hidden cost. Dropping late fees removes roughly $600 million a year in revenue almost overnight. Blockbuster is trying to compete with Netflix using Blockbuster's own economics, and it doesn't fit. In 2007, everything changes again. Netflix quietly adds a new button to its website: Watch Instantly. For the first time, subscribers can stream a limited library of movies and shows directly to their computer. No disc required. It starts small: a few thousand titles, choppy video, limited devices. But Hastings has already seen where broadband internet is heading. He's willing to cannibalize Netflix's own profitable DVD business to get there first. That single decision, betting on streaming before it was obviously the future, is arguably more important than the DVD pivot itself. Netflix is choosing to disrupt itself before someone else does it for them. So let's put real numbers on this story. If you'd invested $1,000 in Netflix stock at its 2002 IPO price and simply held it, that stake would be worth well over $500,000 today. If you'd invested that same $1,000 in Blockbuster stock anytime in the 2000s, by 2010 it's worth zero. Not down a lot. Zero. The stock was delisted and the company was liquidated. That's the full weight of the decision made in that Dallas boardroom. One side of the table became one of the greatest wealth compounding stories in modern stock market history. The other side ceased to exist. Now here's the part most retellings skip. Blockbuster wasn't wrong to say no, because they were careless. They said no because using the numbers in front of them in 2000, Netflix genuinely looked like a bad deal. This is the core lesson of disruption theory. A disruptive company almost always looks small, unprofitable, and unthreatening to the market leader, right up until it isn't. By the time the numbers say danger, it's often already too late to respond. Blockbuster's core strength, thousands of physical stores, became its biggest weakness. Real estate leases, staff, inventory, logistics, all fixed costs that Netflix simply didn't carry. The very thing that made Blockbuster dominant made it slow. This pattern repeats across investing history. Kodak invented the digital camera and shelved it to protect film sales. Nokia dismissed the iPhone as a toy. Taxi companies dismissed Uber. The incumbent almost never sees it coming from the inside. So what do you actually do with this as an investor? First, watch for companies attacking a market leader's biggest cost center. The thing the leader can't easily walk away from. That's usually where the vulnerability lives. Second, pay attention when a small competitor is willing to lose money for years to build a better long-term model. Netflix operated at a loss for over a decade while building infrastructure and library rights. Patience was the moat. Third, remember that dominant market share is not the same thing as a durable advantage. Blockbuster had the market. Netflix had the model. In the end, the model won. None of this means every scrappy startup is the next Netflix. Most disruptors fail. The lesson isn't always bet on the underdog. It's don't assume the leader is safe just because it's currently winning. It's worth noting Blockbuster's decision wasn't even irrational at the time. $50 million for an unprofitable mail-order DVD company in a shaky post.com market was a real ask. Hindsight makes it look obvious. In real time, it never is. That's actually the most useful part of this story for you, watching right now. Somewhere today, a similar meeting is happening. A small company is pitching a giant one, and getting turned down for perfectly reasonable sounding reasons. So here's the real question this video is built around. If you were sitting across that table in the year 2000, not knowing what we know now, which side would you have bet on? Would you have trusted the company with 9,000 stores, $6 billion in revenue, and a household name? Or the four-person startup mailing DVDs out of a converted warehouse in California? Most investors, historically, back the incumbent. It's the safe choice. It's the choice with the track record. And most of the time, that's the right call. Most disruptors really do fail. But every so often, the safe choice is the one standing still while the ground shifts underneath it. Netflix versus Blockbuster is the case study that gets cited more than almost any other in venture capital and business school. It's not really a story about video stores. It's a story about how expensive it can be to be right about the present and wrong about the direction things are heading. Let's zoom out on the bigger picture. Netflix's stock, adjusted for splits, has grown roughly 400 times over since its IPO. Few companies in modern market history have compounded capital anywhere close to that. Blockbuster's stock, at its peak in the late 1990s, valued the company at roughly $5 billion. By 2010, that value was gone entirely, not reduced, gone. Shareholders who held to the end got nothing. Put those two outcomes side by side, and you get the full emotional weight of the decision that changed everything. $1,000, one meeting, two completely different futures. So what should you actually take from this, sitting here in 2026? Not buy every small startup. Not sell every big company. The real takeaway is a habit of mind. Keep asking what your favorite companies could lose to. Ask which competitor looks too small to matter right now. Ask what would happen if that competitor were willing to operate at a loss for 10 years, just to win the long game. Ask whether the market leader's greatest strength, its stores, its factories, its existing revenue stream, might also be the thing preventing it from adapting. That tension is often where the next blockbuster story is quietly forming. None of this is a prediction about any specific stock today. It's a lens. A way of reading industries before the headlines catch up to what's already changing underneath them. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The people in that Dallas boardroom in 2000 weren't fools. They were smart, experienced executives running the most successful video rental company on earth. And they still missed it. That's the humbling part of investing history. Being smart and experienced doesn't protect you from disruption. Sometimes it makes the blind spot even harder to see, because the current model has worked for so long. So if there's one habit worth building from this story, it's this. Revisit your assumptions on a schedule, not just when something forces you to. Blockbuster didn't revisit its assumptions until bankruptcy forced the question. Netflix, on the other hand, revisited its own assumptions constantly. DVDs by mail, to streaming, to original content, to a global platform. Each pivot cannibalized part of the last business. Each one kept them ahead. That willingness to disrupt yourself before someone else does is, honestly, the single biggest differentiator between the two companies in this story. Not luck. Not timing alone. A repeated choice. Let's bring it back to the number in the title. $1,000. It's a small, relatable amount. The kind of money a lot of people could have genuinely put into either stock, back when both were just options on a screen. The gap between those two outcomes, a life-changing sum on one side, total loss on the other, didn't come from luck. It came from a business model, tested against changing technology, over roughly a decade. And it all traces back to a single afternoon in a Dallas boardroom, where two guys with a DVD mailing business got laughed at, and quietly kept building anyway. That persistence, as much as the model, is worth remembering. So before you go, here's the actual exercise. Think of a company you use constantly, that feels untouchable right now. Then ask, what's the DVD by mail idea that could quietly outposition it in 10 years? You probably won't get a clean answer immediately. Neither did the Blockbuster executives in that room. But asking the question repeatedly is what separates investors who catch the next shift from the ones who get caught by it. If this kind of story, real companies, real numbers, real turning points, is useful to you, there are more like it on this channel. Kodak, Nokia, Toys R Us, Sears. Each one has its own version of this exact Dallas boardroom moment. Subscribe if you want the next one. And drop a comment. If you were in that boardroom in 2000, be honest. Would you have said yes to the $50 million deal? Or no? Because the honest answer, for most of us, is probably the same one Blockbuster gave. And that, more than the money, is the real lesson worth sitting with. Thanks for watching. This has been the story of $1,000, one meeting, and the decision that changed everything.